Welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in the Gun Room. Hey, as you guys know, this show is brought to you by Operation Encore. Operation Encore is helping veterans become rock stars every single day. So if you can go over to operationencore.org, give them a little help by hitting that donate button or even just following their social media, and you will see what kind of an amazing 501c they are. Hey everybody, I have got a show for you today. You know, this has been a topic. Everybody knows I've also done the conspiracy theory podcast with Every Day's a Saturday. And this topic has definitely came up several times, and I'm definitely a believer. So I definitely want to introduce everybody to you, Miss June Edward. Miss June Edward is a platform psychic medium. Define that. She passed to others' side at the age of 27 and came back here by choice. She has worked on missing person cases as well as consulted with many well-known paranormal groups and authors. An author and teacher of psychic and mediumship development, she created the Relationship Mastery Program, which teaches people how to change their energy, learn their 5 love lessons, repair their relationships, and magnetize anyone or anything into their lives. Let's bring on Miss June Edward.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you tonight?
I am doing amazing. So,
Fantastic.
you know, one takeaway from your bio. I was with a therapy group, and they introduced to me the love languages. I had never heard that before, and that's actually a really, really cool process. And I also had a guy on here that he turned the love languages into a game. So, I mean, there's a lot to take away from just that part of it. But a little side note, I just seen that in your bio. And,
so these are love. Yeah, but this is very, very different from what that is. The love languages is great, but that's kind of stuck in 3D type stuff. And I try to get people to transcend that a little bit and connect with their soul and the real reason that they're here. And why do they keep getting into the same types of relationships? Why are you with the person that you're with? Is it working? Is it not working? Do you keep dating the same types of people? That really gets down to the core 5 lessons that we're all here for.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to definitely dig into all this. Let's start out by the top part of your bio. Let's define what is a psychic medium.
So everyone has psychic ability. You're born with it. It's that knowing.
Right.
Okay. It's, you know, you're on the way to work one day and you just know you shouldn't go that way. You should take a different route and you avoid a 5-car pileup. That's your soul giving you that information, that knowing. And a medium is someone that talks to dead people. So I see energy. I see souls from the other side. I can talk to them. I died myself when I was 27. I came back here by choice. And I attribute the fact that I can connect to the other side so quickly, and I have such a strong connection to the other side, basically with quantum physics. We get down to the speed of light, right? Speed of light's a little over 300 million miles an hour. And when your soul, which is pure energy, goes into that light and then came back into this body, my vibration is automatically much higher than most people's vibration. So I attribute that to my ability to be able to connect as quickly as I do.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit what is that like when you're going to the other side and talking? I mean, I don't imagine it's like a Zoom or anything.
So, you know, your soul is much bigger than what's stuffed in this little body. Okay. And that's who you truly are. You're not the suit that you're wearing. So you have some of your soul in your body. People talk about seeing an aura above the body. That's the part of your soul that's right outside your body. And then the majority of your soul is actually in the 5th dimension, which is the lowest level of heaven. And that orchestrates the timing of the events that happen in your life. Because you plan this lifetime, believe it or not. You plan the events that are going to happen. There's no accidents. And when you're connecting with your soul, you're connecting with that part, that large amount of it that's actually in the lowest level of heaven. So what I'm doing is connecting more with my soul so I can connect directly with that part that's in heaven.
Okay. I definitely do agree with that too, because there's definitely been, I've had some weird things that kind of happened in my life that I couldn't explain. Um, the weirdest part was just like you said, that knowing. Um, I was on my way to Afghanistan, and my mom's old boyfriend, his name was Bob. I hadn't seen him in years. My mom and him had split up several years, and just out of the blue, never even thought about him for a long time. Out of the blue, I got that feeling that I should just reach out and give him a call. And when I landed in Kandahar, the first person I called was my wife, and she said, "Have you talked to your mom yet?" I said, "No." She said, "Bob just passed away." And I was like, "Wow, man."
Yeah, it's amazing, huh?
It
That's what used
is.
to happen to me when I was a kid all the time, because I was born with a lot of ability to begin with. And as a child, I was afraid of it. And, I would wake up in the morning and I'd have, 20, 30 people around my bed. I'd hear them call my names. I'd see the shadows. I'd be trying to hide. I was scared to death. And as I got older, I would know what was going to happen before it happened. And, I'd tell my friends and tell them in school, and they label you a freak real quick. So you learn how to keep your
Absolutely.
mouth shut.
Yep.
But anytime anybody died, even if I only knew them as an acquaintance, if another family member knew them, they would immediately come to me. And I'd tell them, listen, Joe Schmo died last night. No, he didn't. I saw him last night. So I'm telling you, he's dead. Sure enough, they'd check and he was dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so we all have a brain in our head, right?
Yep.
Most of us. Okay. So your brain is nothing more than a massive computer. It's there to help you process the information that you have. So when you listen to your soul, your brain will help you work through it. Okay. But your brain has a specific job. Your brain's job is to protect you. How does it do that? It does it by creating fear. So most people are making their decisions based on fear. And when you do that, it's literally a crapshoot. It's a 50-50. Sometimes it works out,
Yep.
sometimes it doesn't, but you're always questioning your decisions.
Yep.
When you learn how to make that decision with your soul, just like you heard, call Bob, you don't question it, you just do it. And it's always the right thing, and it works out 100% of the time. So what I do is I teach people how energy works, how the universe really works, how to get in touch with their soul, and how to make those decisions from their soul all the time, not from their brain, to get out of their head and make those decisions. And life, when you raise your vibration, this is when the law of attraction kicks in, because we're magnets. We're always either attracting or repelling.
Yep.
And then when you do that, your life becomes just absolutely amazing. You can really look at it from a higher perspective and see how everything in your life has happened for a reason and brought you to the next place and the next place and the next place and brought you to where you are now, because where you are at this moment is exactly where you're supposed to be. Always. You're
I
always there.
definitely agree with that. So when I got out of the military, I wasn't in the best mental stability, and I was pretty lost, and I made a lot of bad decisions, not understanding why, and I just dug myself deeper and deeper into a dark hole. And here recently, now we'll fast forward 3 years, 4 years, I wholeheartedly believe what you just said, because since the podcast has started, my radio station for veterans has started, the nonprofit, I now feel more at peace and calm, and have been able to help myself go through some therapy, focus these last 18 months on myself and my mental health. And I feel a lot better I am now on my path. This is the path that was designed for
Exactly.
me.
Exactly. And that's what I do. I teach people. My book, All's Fair in Love and Karma, is a result of my program that I created about 4 or 5 years ago called the Relationship Mastery Program.
Hey, have you ever wanted to be a part of this show? You now have the opportunity to be a part of the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room show. We have worked with a nonprofit that is starting called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. We are trying to help this foundation get built. You can be a part of it by sponsoring our show. Go to twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com, sponsor the show, and you will be a part of an amazing organization that will be helping veterans. Thank you. Now let's get back to the show.
And I geared the program towards people having difficulty in their relationship because I felt that they were the most motivated to do the work and change. But honestly, I had a lot of business people that went through that just wanted to increase their business. I had a lot of veterans go through that had PTSD.
Yeah.
And by learning the 5 soul lessons, you actually recover and you can look at life from a higher perspective. You get on the path that you're supposed to be on. And it's just absolutely incredible. It truly is.
So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about how I know you've worked with several different agencies and authors, like you said in your bio. What have you found that's the most rewarding now that you've accepted your gifts and they're not scaring you no more?
So honestly, there's 2 things that are extremely rewarding for me. Someone finding me that is on the verge of taking their own life, and I'm able to absolutely change their entire outlook and their life around and put them on the path they're supposed to be on. And healing souls on both sides. So for instance, if someone comes to me and they didn't have closure from a child or a spouse or someone on the other side, or there was miscommunication, lots of things. And I bring the soul through from the other side and have the conversation. I'm like the person in the middle that's just, facilitating a conversation between these two, but healing the soul that's actually in heaven as well as the soul that's here. That's just unbelievable because they can be hurting up there as well. They're no different there than they are here. They just don't have a body. So if you're here and you're grieving them still, then they can't move on over there and enjoy being in heaven. They're stuck here grieving with you because they literally live vicariously through us once they lose their body. They still want to be around you. They still love you. They still care about you. But if you're grieving them, they're really stuck.
So when we think heaven, I know everybody kind of has that different image of what heaven looks like and is. And I'm a believer. Not everybody is, but I do believe in heaven. And the 20 years of the military, I've seen evil. So you can't know that there's evil out there. And I don't mean like just bad people. I mean there's evil out there.
There's demons. Oh yeah.
Yep. And
everything in the universe has to stay in balance. So if you
Yep.
have a heaven, you have to have a hell.
Right. And that is that is why I believe in heaven, because I've seen the other side. And just like you said, you can't have happy without sad. You can't have heaven without hell.
Everything has to stay in balance. Everything.
Yep. So when we think of heaven, right? Are they able to still like interact with us in a way from there? You say that they kind of still live through us.
They're constantly trying to. So it's almost like a 2-way mirror. Okay. They can see you. They can hear you. A lot of them have a lot of energy and can even touch you and move objects and things like that. But it's like they're banging on the glass. You can't see them. They're banging on the glass saying, I'm here. Can't you see me? When somebody comes to me, even if it's just to do a reading and not mediumship, I'll see, anywhere between 200 and 500 souls standing around me, just hoping that they're going to have an opportunity to speak, be seen, something. I have it pretty militarized, to be honest with you. I have a gatekeeper that keeps everybody back there because as a platform medium, I'd have an audience of 200 or 300 people. Wow. And he would line up the souls so that would tell me who to call on, and that's the soul that would be coming through. And I don't work with random souls. I work with specific souls. So if you wanted to talk to Aunt Sally, you would tell me. Now, you wouldn't tell me, but you'd call her in your head, and that's who would show up specifically, and that's who we would talk to and who I would describe. Okay. When you're talking with random people, you spend hours just trying to figure out who they are, because everybody wants to sneak through.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. I kind of, you said it's militarized, I kind of just pictured, like basic training and everything where everybody's sitting there for mail call, just waiting, hoping get a
pretty much.
comment or something from home, you know?
Excellent. And they're hoping you slip up. And, you know, when I was first starting out and training and doing this, every now and then I'd have somebody for a general reading or an astrology reading. And then whoever wants to come through. And oh my God, if I ever fell for that, I spent 25 minutes one day describing someone. And she's like, oh, nope, I don't know her. Nope, I don't know her. I don't know it. Nope, no clue. Boom. Who was it? Their mother's next door neighbor's daughter.
Wow.
Okay, it was her mother that wanted to get a message to her, and she knew that this woman was going to see her. Okay,
wow.
that's how adamant they are about wanting to come through and bring messages to people. So if you can understand how the universe works and you can read the messages and see the signs, I also teach people how to talk to angels, because angels are real. Angels were not human. They are a completely separate race. Their entire existence is to help us. But there's rules there just as there are here. And their rule is that you have to ask. They cannot intervene if you don't ask. Just like if you lose a piece of jewelry and you need to find it, you ask St. Anthony to help you find it. Boom, he will in 2 seconds. But you have to ask or they can't help.
Wow.
And they talk in binary code and numbers and symbolism. So when you understand that, you can follow the breadcrumbs and the little pointers and where they're trying to take you in a certain direction.
Well, you know, I never thought about that as angels being, like you said, a different race, you know?
Yeah, they were not human.
And I definitely didn't picture heaven like what you're describing either, you know? So let me ask this, is heaven as peaceful as you know, like religion depicts it to be, or is heaven more different than that?
There's you know, thousands of religions. Okay, yep. Every religion is right, every religion is wrong, every religion's a little bit different, and yep. Every religion is a little bit the same. Okay, there are common threads, commonality that run through every religion. And I can tell you that because we are pure energy, okay, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be created or changed. So your energy, when it goes, you take with you 2 things. You take knowledge and you take love. And when I got there, I got a full life review, which less than 1% of people, I guess, that pass have that happen. And it's everything in your life that was important to you, everyone you loved, anything that brought you joy. And then I was told that it was not my time. I clearly had written an exit into my life because I'd had a very difficult life and I could have taken it if I wanted to. And it was a tough decision for a couple of minutes there until I remembered my children. And I knew that I had come here to begin with for my children. And had I not come back, I wouldn't have had my 3rd son. So that was the reason that I came back. The only reason I came back was for my children, because it's, you know, if you could wrap yourself in a warm blanket of love in the dead of winter, it's the only thing I can think of that even comes near the immense feeling of love that's on the other side. It's just incredible. Now, not to say that there aren't different things going on over there, because there are. Heaven is a very interesting place. Like I said, when you die, you're the same person on the other side as you were here. So if you were a jerk here, you're a jerk over there as well. And the only people I have not been able to bring through is someone that has taken someone else's life and has no remorse. I do believe that those people are the only ones that are in hell, because I've been able to bring through everybody else. Rapists, robbers, pedophiles. I've brought them all through. They are in heaven. They chose to come here and play that role here for some reason, to learn a lesson, to teach a lesson, to change someone's life, whatever. We plan this life before we come here. So there are no accidents. And we've interacted with these people for a reason. And you have to, you know, every challenge in your life is just that. It's a challenge. It doesn't reflect upon who you are. It's a challenge for you to learn to overcome, no matter what it is. But I have brought through people. I had a girl that wanted me to bring her father through who had molested her. And he was vile. He came through swearing at me, and it's her fault. It was her father's fault. They were provocative. They were this. He had no remorse at all for it. I sent him on his way. I wasn't going to listen to his crap anymore. And she's like, well, I'm good. And he hasn't changed. He's the same as he was when he was here. So, but those people have a lot of, so those are less advanced souls. Okay. Everybody's seen a child that's, a young child that's old beyond his years. We call him an old soul, right? Because there are souls that are more advanced than others. And you go to the level of heaven. It was described to me like a layer cake, because I've only been able to go to the 5th dimension. I'm not allowed to go beyond that until I pass again. But the 5th dimension is the level that I went to. But there are different levels. It was described to me that it's like a layer cake, and you go to the level based on how advanced your soul is and the belief system, so that you're with kind-like people. Okay.
Okay.
And I saw my parents died a few years ago, both at the exact same age, on the exact same day, 1 year apart. And I was with my mom when my mom passed, and I watched her soul leave her body. And I actually saw her go to the other side and go immediately to my father and my 2 sisters. And the angel that took her, I asked him, he was sitting in her room during the night. I asked him what his name was. They're always teaching me from the other side. He said his name was 𝐿. Never heard of 𝐿. So I researched angel 𝐿, and it said it was the angel that brings advanced souls to the higher realms. So apparently they're more advanced souls. They had very difficult lives, and that's where they went. I did more research, and 𝐿 is Archangel Michael as well. But had he told me his name was Michael, I would not have looked it up, and I would not have known that he takes advanced souls to the higher realms. Wouldn't have had any idea. They're always teaching me something from the other side.
Wow. Yeah. Man, this is so different than what I pictured.
It's pretty complex on the other side. It's not easy peasy. You're dead and you're in a box and it's over. It certainly does not work that way at all. And I brought, the first person that I ever brought through when I was in training for my abilities, because I trained for 1.5 years before I did anything, because I needed to learn how to control it. It was a friend of mine that I grew up with who had committed suicide when he was about 28. And he came through crying, remorseful, very, very sad. And at the time, I didn't know how to clear that energy out. So I walked around for 3 days like he was, because I took on all his energy. And I went to visit his grave at the cemetery. Not that they're there, they're not unless you call them there. But it just so happens I missed his funeral. I was in the area. I wanted to pop in for some reason and see it. And again, there's a reason for everything, right? There's nothing's random. So when I went in and I had to look up the number, I went to find the grave and it was open. And I'm like, oh my God, why is this open, right? He showed up immediately to tell me that his parents had passed and that's who they were burying. And I didn't ask him what happened. Maybe it was an accident or something. I don't know, because it seemed to be both of them at the same time, unless they had passed within days of each other. And he was very, very happy. He said he had, talked to them when they came to the other side. They understood everything that happened. They weren't angry and they weren't hurt anymore. And, he was happy again.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah. But if I had been able to talk to his parents years earlier, he would have been in better shape on the other side, because he would have been able to make that connection earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So let me ask you this from a military standpoint, right? Because I've asked chaplains this and everything else, and you were talking about people that had killed somebody. Soldiers in combat, there's a lot of death, and there's definitely a lot of bad stuff that happens. What about those kind of situations?
So you have to remember, again, you planned this life before you came here. And this is basically, you're acting in a movie. This is what you're doing. You're acting in a movie. So if you chose to play that character in this movie that's, I don't know, torturing people and hurting people or whatever, you have to first forgive yourself, okay? You don't go to hell for it, I can tell you that. And as long as you haven't killed someone and you're getting joy from it, those people go to hell. If you're remorseful, say, if you're remorseful, you've had to do it because it was part of your job. You were trained to do this. You're a sniper. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be protecting other people, and this is the way it's done. That's remorseful. You're not doing this out of joy. You're not doing this because you're possessed by a demon and you're evil. That's very, very different.
Okay.
Those are the ones that are in hell, not the people that have had to go through this and be put in a very, very difficult position because it's what's required of them in this lifetime.
And that's similar to a definition that I heard. It was on another podcast, and it was the first time, because the chaplains, I never really bought into their story. They told a story, but it didn't seem like they really knew the story.
And most of them don't. I mean, it's difficult. I did meet I met a Jesuit priest one day at the gym, believe it or not, of all places. And he came up to me, a very, very kind older man, and he said, I was told that you're a medium. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I was also told that you died when you were younger. I said, yeah. He goes, can we talk? I'm like, sure. He goes, I died as well. I said, oh. I said, it's amazing, isn't it? He goes, not so much. He said, I died and I went to hell. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah. I
said, I don't know anyone else that's ever gone to hell. Certainly not to talk about it. He goes, no. He goes, I died. And I do believe he was somehow connected with his military service. And he goes, I went to hell. And they literally told me that they were showing me this because they want me to go back and tell people that it's real, because too many people don't believe that it's real. And when he came back, that's when he went into the priesthood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
he goes, they didn't tell me that's where I was going. He goes, and I didn't get that impression at all. He goes, but they took me there to tell me that they wanted me to spread around what it is and what it's like and that it's real.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to know what it's like. That's for sure.
I don't care to either. And, I, for the most part, work with souls that have gone into the light. Mm-hmm. But many times I have to work with, I call them lower vibrational entities. Those are the ghosts that are stuck here.
Okay.
I don't go out of my way to work with them because it's not my calling. It's other people's callings. It's not mine. But many times I'll come upon a situation. I did a missing person case and he was dead but had not gone into the light. So to me, I couldn't even tell he was dead because it's the same vibration as someone that's living, and he did not want anyone knowing he was dead. So it was quite the challenge. And I sent him into the light and he came back immediately. I was with the family, and you can move very, very quickly once you go into the light. You can move at the speed of light, 300 million miles an hour. Yeah. But as a ghost stuck here, they can only move the same as you or I. So he was hitching a ride in vehicles to get where he was going. He had us on quite the wild goose chase, and everywhere that he'd ever worked in his life, basically. Yeah, and I could see what he was doing, and I knew what he was doing, but I did not know that it was his soul that was doing that, and he was a ghost because he hadn't gone into the light. And every now and then, I'll go to do a house clearing or something, and there's spirits everywhere. I mean, think of how many billions of people have passed through this earth.
Right.
There's lots of them stuck all over the place. And a lot of times they don't want to go into the light because they're stuck in fear. They're afraid they're going to be judged. They don't know what's going to happen. So better off the hell is better than the hell you don't know, right? Yeah. So they stay stuck here. And I literally have to try and call in a family member from the other side to bring them through. So they're not afraid. Yeah.
Man, I could just see how, one, I don't know how you do it. I would have gone insane already. But it's like that movie, The Sixth Sense, where people are all talking around and it's just like,
it's a great movie.
Chaos.
And so I feel bad for a lot of them because they are very stuck here. It's hard for a lot of them. But again, I've met other mediums that that's their calling. It's just not my calling.
Right.
I have a different calling. But again, I was afraid of these abilities as a child. I remember my parents split up and I was 10 years old, and my job was to do the dishes every night after dinner. And I'm doing the dishes, and then there's this woman, probably about 45, who would come over every night, stand there and keep me company and talk to me. I didn't know nobody else saw her. I was the only one in the kitchen. So one day I asked my brother who she was, and he starts laughing, telling me, oh yeah, that's the dead woman that was killed in the house. Her husband threw her down the basement stairs. And it scared me so much. She had to feel it because she didn't come back anymore.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, when you don't understand it, it's very frightening. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
And, even though I was blocking my abilities for many, many years, I was still very intrigued. I was one of these people, if I can't see it, smell it, and touch it, it doesn't exist. I love to look at the stars, but I mean, I can't quite fathom, the distance and how I just, because I can't see it, feel it, and touch it.
Yep.
When I died and I went to heaven, let me tell you, there was no denying it for me anymore. Yeah. And it took me a very long time to talk about it. It took me years. Every time I tried to talk about it, it was so emotional. I would just choke up and start crying.
Oh, I can imagine.
It was just incredible. It was incredible. It took me a long time. Even now, if I want to start getting into the feeling of it, it's just beyond words. It really, truly is. I'm enjoying the ride here. I'm enjoying the roller coaster. I'm fulfilled with everything, helping people. But I do look forward to the day I go back. I won't lie.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much there to explore now. I mean, now that and you're just, it's like you're at the bottom of the mountain looking up, and you see so much more than what you've gotten.
Exactly.
I could imagine that too. And I've had soldiers. I kind of relate it to this too. I've had soldiers that say, "Man, these kids don't even know what they're missing." You said, and I said, exactly. That's why they're not miserable. This is what they know. This is what they see. They haven't even seen American
and that's everyone everywhere. Everybody will sit here and say, "Oh, these poor kids that live in the rice field out in China and they're suffering so much." That's their life every day. They don't know any different. This is why you have to know joy to know sadness. Yep. You have to know pain to feel happy, satisfied in that happiness way. Everything has to stay in balance. And if they haven't received, anything that they don't know anything different, they're not suffering as much as we think they are. Sure, they could live a better life, but it's not like they're living their life in pain. Right. They chose the life that they're living for a certain reason. You don't know what's going to happen in their life next. You don't. Maybe one of them's going to end up, getting adopted, going to college, becoming a heart surgeon. You don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone's path is different.
And they planned it, and the crazy part about that is, like you said, I planned my life. I didn't do a very good job, but I planned it. But I have no clue. Sitting here right now, I can't even tell you what I planned, and
you're not supposed to remember.
Right.
You wouldn't enjoy it if you knew. So if you knew everything was going to happen in your life, would you even bother to get out of bed?
No,
you wouldn't. You would have no excitement. And I found that the people that have the more challenging lives have the higher calling. They have a more important message to get out there, or something important that they're supposed to do. And they chose it. They wanted something that was more exciting for themselves.
Well, I will tell you that makes perfect sense, because I was like I said, when I got out of the military, I was definitely messed up. Not so much messed up as in like really bad, but I just was in a dark place. I didn't want to live anymore. I've came to terms now where I realized I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't want to live. I didn't like who I was looking at. I didn't like what I was seeing, and I didn't know how to fix it. And I've always wanted to own my own business. And so I bought a semi truck and started a trucking company that obviously didn't do very well because I wasn't in the right mind to run a business. And like I said, I just kept digging this hole, just kept digging until one day I reached the day that my shovel broke, and I knew now that the only way to do is climb back out. And I feel more fulfilled now that I don't even have a business, working with a nonprofit that I'm helping build, and podcasting, and working a regular 9-to-5 job than I ever did with one of my goals in my life of owning a business.
Well, there's actually a name for that. They call it the dark night of the soul. When you hit that point, yep, there is, and I've been there myself. Even after dying, I was, I'd found out my first husband was cheating on me. My baby was literally 6 weeks old, my third one. This was after I had passed to the other side. And I had a nervous breakdown, literally. And they had me on medication, and it still didn't take away the pain, the physical pain that I was feeling. And I literally was going to commit suicide. Yeah. I mean, if I had not if I hadn't I called my girlfriend to say goodbye and took the phone off the hook. And if she didn't have the forethought to call the police, to send them to the house to get my plate information, they wouldn't have found me in time.
Yeah.
And you know what? I did not know what I know now, because committing suicide is never an acceptable out. It's never written into your plan. Right. Because when you do that, now you screw up the plans that you made of all the interactions that you're supposed to have with all these people. And the angels have to jump in real fast to try to fix everything and change everybody's plans. It's a lot of work for everybody. Right. And before you can come back from committing suicide, you actually have to go through counseling on the other side with the angels and archangels before you can come back again. Because they don't want you doing it again. You've messed everything up. You've caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I've been to the edge of that ledge. I've looked over it. Everybody has that breaking point, and it's a very scary thing to know that you are human and you have that breaking point. Yeah. And that you're at the edge looking down and have to make that decision. Yeah. It's very difficult.
I agree, and one of the best parts of my therapy that I wrote a book to my kids, and I just sent it to them. I haven't, a few people say I should publish it or whatever, and I haven't fully decided, but I wrote it because when they were really young, it was all pre-deployments, and I was a different guy. When they were at that puberty age where they really needed mentorship, I was not there. Even when I was physically there, I wasn't there.
Right.
And I didn't want to write an apology, but I didn't also want to spend the time to talk and try to vocalize my feelings. So I wrote them a book.
But that was your therapy more than anything.
Yep.
So but understand, don't feel guilty over it, because it was part of the plan. Right. So again, all's fair in love and karma. There's 5 lessons that our soul has to learn. Every single solitary person that's here is here to learn those lessons. You're here to help. You're here to pay karma back and collect karma and have a little vacation, but you're here to learn those lessons. And one of the first ones is self-worth. Self-worth is knowing that you are the only one of you on the entire face of this planet. How special are you? How needed are you that there's only one of you? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not, and it's not about value, because value is what other people place on you. It's self-worth. It's knowing that you are the collective. You are much more valuable and more collective than when anyone else can put a value on. And it is not narcissistic, and it is not selfish to put yourself first. It's where everything else comes from. If you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to be here to take care of anyone else? You're not.
Yeah.
So it all starts with you being the most important thing. That's where it starts. Yep. Then the next thing is trust and communication. You have to be able to communicate your needs to another person. Okay? Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a significant other, whether it's a child, whether it's an employee or an employer. You have to be able to communicate your wants and your needs. And you have to trust that there is a higher power and that there is a plan and that nothing's being done to you. Everything is being done for you. Okay?
All right.
And you also have to trust the person enough to be able to communicate to them what it is you want and you need. And then sex is just another form of communication. If you can't communicate outside the bedroom, you're never going to be able to communicate inside the bedroom.
That makes sense.
Then you have unconditional love. Unconditional love is not playing the martyr and saying, oh, my husband beats me every day, but I got to stay with him because I love him unconditionally, right?
Right.
No, that's when self-worth steps in again, right? Because every lesson reinforces the previous lesson as well. Make sure you learn them all and remember them. Unconditional love is saying, listen, I'm really grateful that we had this time together. I'll always love that time. I'm grateful that we had the kids together, whatever. But I'm not getting joy. This isn't doing anything productive for either one of us. It's time for us to part ways, and I wish you all the best. That's unconditional love. Suppose you had a child that you love unconditionally, and they do something horrific. Maybe they murder a neighbor in rage, and they go to prison the rest of their life. You don't like what the child did, but hopefully you still love your child. That's unconditional love. And that's what we're here to learn as well. Then you have money and balance. Everything in the universe has to be in balance. You have to be able to, have an even exchange of energy. Money is energy. That's why it's called currency. Okay. And we don't walk into a grocery store yet and drop down $10,000 to buy a bunch of bananas. But money highlights whether or not you're in balance so that you're having that even exchange. Suppose all you do is work 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, right? Just because you want to earn more money. Well, now your life's going to be out of balance, right? You're not going to have any time for your family, your friends, to take care of yourself. It's highlighted by the money. And then you're just saving the money. Or you're saving the money, you're hoarding the money, you want to make more money, you want to keep money. Guess what? You don't even value yourself enough to spend the fruits of your labor on yourself. Now the self-worth is kicking in again.
Hey, let me tell you guys about an amazing organization that is being built right now. It is called Heroes Voices Media Foundation, and it is an organization that is using media to help veterans express themselves and tell their stories using media, as in podcasting, like the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gunroom show. It is also using music like Gunroom Radio. And it is also using books like what is coming soon with Warrior Words. So if you would like to help, go check out Heroes Voice Media Foundation.org. You can find it at our Facebook page, and you can also find it in the description of this episode. So let's get back to the show. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the last one is patience. And that's a big one because we live in a world of instant gratification right now, and everybody wants everything now or yesterday. They want Uber to deliver. It's just insane. And things come to you when they're supposed to. Your higher self, your part of your soul that's in the fifth dimension, that's what works the timing of the plan that you made of when things are going to come to you. It may be that every little 6-year-old girl wants to get married, right? And have babies. Well, Jesus, you don't want that happening at 6, right? It happens when it's supposed to.
Right.
Maybe it'll happen when you're 30. Maybe it'll happen when you're 40. Maybe they won't even be your kids. Maybe you'll marry a widow and raise his kids. Whatever you wrote into your plan, as long as you know it's what you want, the universe will bring it to you. Just not always the way or the time that you think it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, and that makes, man, so much of this is filled in a lot of pieces. And I've always said the same thing about religion. I do believe there's a God, and I think we're all praying to him, whether it's whatever religious belief you have.
There is only one. There is only, whatever you want to call it, there is only one. It doesn't matter.
And then you talk about balance. If you take a step back and you put all your personal thoughts and you look at how Earth is right now, all these countries, I think you could safely say we could all agree at one thing. it's out of balance.
It is. It happens every few eons, whatever. But it's good and evil, and the good and just like for us, balance plays out with money. For evil and good play out in politics, because that's where the power is held in the world. So this is an imbalance of good and evil in the world right now. And the pendulum is always swinging. Okay. So it will go back and go the other way again, and for another who knows how long.
Right. And then the other thing that I've kind of always wondered, I've always been into the UFO thought process, right? But I wonder if, like you said, that, you know, they can still interact with us, and some of them are powerful enough to actually touch and move and stuff like that.
Yep.
So my thought process is, you know, I wonder if that's really what we're seeing, not so much really about UFOs, you know?
Well, aliens exist as well. I don't know what we're actually seeing, because, you know, our own military and our own government has been putting stuff up there to try to get us to think it's them. But, you know, their technology is long beyond us. I don't think they'd want us to be seeing them, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So I have my doubts as to what it is we're actually seeing, but aliens do exist. When I first started training, I was in a meditation, and I ended up in a room that was full of books, and it was like a big tunnel full of books. And I'm like, where am I? And they're like, oh, it's the Hall of Knowledge. And I'm like, wow, I'm all about this. You know, I love to learn.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what can you show me? And they gave me my book of life, because without someone's permission, I can't read anyone else's. They gave me mine. And every religion talks about your book of life. And I was able to take it into a side room. Then it opened up like a 3D movie, just like when I had my life review, it opened up like a 3D movie. And I was able to start looking at my past lives, and I was amazing. But the person that let me in, I described him when I came back out of the meditation. I had no idea who he was or what he was. Apparently, he's a Palladian, and he has confirmed this for me since. And he's a very big guy. I've still never looked up to see his face, to be honest with you. And he's very cylindrical, and he keeps his arms underneath his cape, so I've never seen his hands or anything either. And he just talks to me. But I've had to consult him in regards to readings that I've done, because I had a woman come to me that had been abducted several times and wanted to know why. And who am I going to ask? I asked him. He's an alien, right? He would know.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even aliens fall under this same heaven and spirits and all that stuff as well.
They're there because the Akashic record room is in the 5th dimension. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I can only give you the answers of what I know. And I'm learning all the time. They don't always answer my questions, but they are always teaching me. But apparently they are there, because that Palladian is in the 5th dimension, which is the lowest level of heaven, where the Akashic record room is kept. And I can get there back and forth, you know, in seconds now.
Yeah. That is amazing.
It is.
I'm so envious, you know, I'm for the first time in probably 2 years, I'm actually speechless.
So it's interesting, because I'm still a soul having a human experience in a human body, right? And I'm no different than anybody else, really, except that I have more knowledge on different areas at this point. But I remember when I first started doing group readings with lots of people, and you know, I was like sitting there and I'm going to myself, oh my God, what happens if nobody comes through? What happens if you know, what happens if I, you know, I get the wrong people for the wrong soul? What happens? And all of a sudden I just heard, you know what, June, you got to stop. You have to trust the other side. They never let you down. They have never let me down, and they don't. And they'll always make sure that they're there. And darn if they aren't.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and just think of the good that you can do with this. I mean, I'm just sitting here just thinking about all the answers that, you know, I didn't know, and things I've heard, you know, about my dad after he had died that I didn't know because I was really little, you know, the good and the bad. And there's just so many things out there that you could learn and help other people learn by being
That's
able
what I
to do
try to
this.
do. That's why I write the books. This is my fourth book, actually, and I have the 7-week relationship mastery program. These relationships are everybody. You know, we're having a relationship right here. If you're
Right.
listening to me right now, then you're here for a reason, and something that I'm saying is resonating with you and is going to answer some questions or help you in some way. That's how it works.
I agree.
That's how it works.
So let me ask you this. So the word psychic medium, when people hear the word psychic, they think of somebody that can like tell the future, you know. Are you able to do that too, or is the term psychic medium one thing?
I am.
Okay.
No, so like I said, everyone has psychic ability. I believe everyone has mediumship ability. I tell people it's kind of like playing a piano. Some people sit down and all they're going to play is chopsticks.
Yep.
Okay, because they're not listening real well to their own soul. Other people can really apply themselves, learn a couple of songs. Other people really want it, and they'll teach themselves to be concert pianists. I happen to be the child prodigy that sits down and plays Mozart. My abilities are very, very strong. I'm grateful for them.
Yeah.
But everyone has the ability, and if you apply yourself, you can. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. That's pretty much how it works.
So,
and one of the big things with mediums is, you know, again, we're having a human experience. So people let their egos get in the way.
right.
They don't want to say something because, oh my God, I could be wrong, or I'm going to feel foolish or something. And you can't do that to do the work properly.
Right.
I just give what I get. And it may sound really stupid. I can't help that. I can only give out what they give me. And if you're not supposed to know, then they're not going to tell me. It's that simple. Right. And they're not going to give me information that's going to alter or change your life.
Right. Yeah.
They can't do that.
People asking questions about like when I'm going to die or how I'm going to die and stuff like that. Those aren't answers you're going to get.
Not necessarily. So I do a bunch of different things. I also do numerology and astrology combined, which is the destiny cards. And I've been able to predict 2 people's deaths within a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Actually 3 people at this point. One person was being asked by family, so I let them know about when it would occur because the person was older, so they could be prepared. And the other 2 were people that were personally in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not something I would sit there and try to tell you when you're going to die. No.
Right. I was just thinking of types of questions a customer or somebody would come in that, you know, would ask, and it makes sense that you don't want to alter their path, you know.
Well, you can't, and they're not going to give me information if it's going to alter your life. They won't. They absolutely won't give me that information because that's not what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
We're not here to alter your life. Can I tell the future? A lot of times, absolutely. You know, I told a friend of mine that this girl was going to be in his life for a long, long time. And he kept saying, no way, no way, no way. Well, they just got married a week ago.
Yeah. I mean, I would have took a psychic to get me to believe that, you know, me and my wife, we started dating in 7th grade and we're still married today, you know, even though I'm in Missouri and she's in Georgia, you know, and I go home once a year to see the family and everything. But, yeah, we're still together. You know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know how she feels, but I wouldn't have it any other way. She might like the separation part. I don't know.
You know, everyone has a different path. Everyone has a different journey.
Yeah.
Who are we to judge, right?
Yeah.
You know, quite honestly, the only ones that I'm still having difficulty with are the pedophiles. I have a real problem with that. I just
you and me both.
For whatever reason, that's their job. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I can't wrap my head around it, and I probably never will.
No, I don't either. And it shocked me when you said that, you know, even they're even in heaven. And
they
I don't understand.
Absolutely, they are. Absolutely, they are.
I would have to tell God, hey, this is California. We need a recount, or this is Florida. Some of these people got to go.
But you know, quite honestly, everything serves a purpose. If you know, I mean, I was a victim myself as a child, and if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't be the person that I am. If I hadn't gone through the things that I'd gone through in life, how am I supposed to counsel somebody else that's gone through it?
Right.
You have to walk a mile in somebody's shoes. How are you going to relate, really?
Yeah.
And so
right.
I mean, I had a very difficult upbringing, but I attribute that to the fact that this is where they wanted me to be so that I could help other people.
Yeah. And you know, I'm seeing that more and more every day too. I've always had a temper. Even when I was little, I used to like to fight, and that was just me. And I got a lot of it from my biological father. I lived with my grandparents, so I call them mom and dad, because I've never lived with my biological parents. But I've known my dad, and I know my dad has always not been a good man. You know, he's lived a very not a productive life, you know, and he has a very bad temper, was very violent, and so forth. So I do relate that that's probably a little bit where my temper came from. And the stuff I went through the military, all that did was just increase that, you know, more so of compressing feelings and not having any out was.
So again, you planned it. So what lesson was it that you needed to learn? Trust and communication, probably, and self-worth.
Yeah. And yeah, trust is a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
You know, I always feel the need that I have to tell people when they meet me, just to let you know, my biggest pet peeve is lying to me. If I find out you lied to me, you're going to be on the outside of a circle, and I don't know if that there's any coming back in. So, and sometimes I'm still learning that lesson, that sometimes you just have to forgive and chalk it up. Nobody's perfect, you know, and my temper's getting better. And I'm now actually even trying to get off the VA meds and go back to a normal life. And so I definitely have, I've definitely came a long way.
What I've learned is that if you're on medication, you can't connect with your soul. It just clouds your mind, so you can't get out of it to connect with your soul. Yeah. I've had, like I said, I've had a lot of people go through the program that were on, you know, the depression medication for PTSD or manic depression or different things. And I won't tell them they have to get off it, but I will tell them that the program won't work. You cannot shift your energy to a higher level if you're being medicated. And that includes self-medication, alcohol, marijuana. All you're doing is self-medicating, and you're not getting in touch with your soul at that point, and you're lowering your vibration. Alcohol used to be called spirits, and it's called that for a reason, because it lowers your threshold and allows you to be taken over by a spirit, whether it's demonic or otherwise. That's why that's why alcohol was called spirits. And you'd be surprised how many of them are hanging around in bars and things because they're opportunists. You know, if it's a demonic attachment, it literally wants your body. And it will, you know, I'll see them literally hanging on somebody's back like they give them a piggyback ride. That's what it looks like. Really? Yep. And they'll keep talking to you and getting in your head until you make friends with them, and then they can start taking over the body. Yeah, wow. It's bad. But that's how they get in. So I always tell everybody too, make sure you wear some type of religious talisman so that when you are in a restaurant or a bar or out somewhere and something like that comes over to you, they're going to see that and know you're going to put up more of a fight, and they're just going to go to the next person most of the time.
Okay.
Same thing in your home, because they'll walk right off the street, come in your house. Pretty much every place is haunted, trust me. Put religious symbols in your house. You know, I have in every room, I've got an archangel, I've got Mother Mary, Jesus, a cross, something. Yeah. And I have everything blessed by a Catholic church, because even though I'm not Catholic, for some reason, it has a lot of power to the other side.
Well, there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, even my car, I have a rosary that someone got from Israel for me, or Jerusalem, and had it blessed. And I have that hanging from my rear view mirror, because more often than not, they're standing around at red lights and stop signs, and they'll hop in your car because they want to ride to the next station, and they can't, you know, they can't get around any faster than you or I. So if they're going to take a ride, they'll take a ride.
Wow, man, I've learned so much tonight, and I know I could have this conversation for probably 4 more hours. But let me ask you this: can you tell everybody, one, where's the best place to get your book? I know I've got your website going. Can they go to the website to get any of your products?
Yep, they can go to my website, 𝐿evinedwood.com. All of my books are available there. You can also book services with me there. There are videos you can watch. There's a free webinar that you can watch on energy. And then All's Fair in Love and Karma is available at all bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's on audio. Hit the #1 bestseller list about 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
So yeah, you can find that
Absolutely.
anywhere.
We will make sure that everybody knows that. I got one more personal question.
Sure.
To do readings and stuff like that and help people, does it have to be face to face, or can
No,
it be?
absolutely not. It's energy. I have clients all over the world.
Okay.
If you're not in the United States, then I use either Skype or Zoom. If you're somewhere else in the United States, other than where I am, I usually use Skype.
Okay.
And it's just energy. So, I just did a missing person case last week. It's just, I'm picking up on their energy is what I'm doing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Miss June, why don't we go ahead and say goodbye, and then we'll I'll throw the little end the show video. Man, this has been, I've had such a great time. I'm definitely going to have to ask you to come back, and we'll definitely do another hour segment another day. But you have given me so much more to think about. I have definitely, I don't know, a lot of the stuff that you just said, man, pieces of a lot of things I've always believed together.
So my first book is on the website as well, A Night on the Other Side, and that will teach everyone how to meditate properly, how to get in touch with their soul, how to clear their homes out, all that kind of stuff. Everything that I used to teach, I put in that book.
Okay. And I think that would definitely be the best place to start for somebody, because if you can't get to know yourself and meditate, just like you said with the antidepressants and stuff.
Well, I put the meditation directions in all my books. So All's Fair in Love and Karma has a whole section on it as well.
Okay. Yeah, because it takes away your balance. There's no happy, there's no sad. You're just here. So exactly. That makes sense.
Here's a nice place to be.
Yeah, some days. Some days I'll take here. But the other days I like that roller coaster too sometimes,
Well, the highs aren't so high and the lows aren't so low. They're still there.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I'm gonna go, like I say, go and throw this. If you don't mind hanging on for afterwards, we'll chat for a few minutes.
Thank you.
All right. You guys take care. Everybody be safe, man. We will see you for the next episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did, because I definitely learned a lot. So if y'all ever want to get a reading, JuneEdwards.com or JuneEdward.com, no S. And I will make sure all the links are posted in the bottom and everything we do. So you guys will, anytime you see it, you'll definitely be able to get there. Y'all take care. Be safe. Love y'all.